Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day. I know it's not super sunny, but it's perfect weather for being in the garden or doing some activity outside. We've had a really great fall and it has allowed for us to have an extended season. So thankfully, knowing that the summer was so challenging to grow food, it's really nice to be able to be producing some beautiful food here in the later fall. So this morning we were able to haul out quite a lot. We had a great beet harvest. Our carrots plumped up. We're starting to take down squash. We've been removing some of the charred plants and then just keeping the best of the leaves. And guess what? The aphids are going. So we actually have some really beautiful kale plants that are now managing to thrive in these conditions. So that's all really good news. And our peppers are still doing so good and they're actually starting to turn colors. So the garden is great. And this past Saturday, we had nearly 30 people come. Some people who had been here before and some newcomers, and we had a lot of kids, and it was a really great environment. So thank you so much to those who were able to come. And just so you know, we did get a lot done, but there's still a lot to do. And so this week, we are actually not going to be having a work party here at the community garden because we're going to be trying to have a work party down at the new Lighthouse Community Food Forest. So that's down at the Salvation Army space close to the Fall Fairgrounds, and we are going to be trying to put in some permaculture, hugelkultur beds. And so we're acquiring materials this week and hoping to at least be able to install 3 or maybe even 4 of these hugel beds. So that's where I will be this week, and we invite anyone who's here who's kind of curious to know what's going on down at that project. If you wanted to come down there and help out, you certainly can. Or maybe you like the quiet and serenity of the space and are interested in coming up to the community garden. And so if you did want to come up to the community garden, there are some things you can do. If there are rows that have crops growing in them, whether it's lettuce or carrots, beets, spinach, if you can weed and get rid of any of the weeds and encourage the plants to grow. We've been thinning carrots. The beets will still keep going because we can go with the greens, but just cleaning up those rows and encouraging growth of those crops. Now, things like we are going to leave in the lettuce, the spinach, the chard, the kales. So we are going to leave them in over winter, but what we will need to do is add some compost. So here in this spinach row, and even here, we could add another bucket full of compost around the roots. And in the end, what we could do is I'd really love to get some leaves up here. So if we were to get people, if you bag up leaves and if you bring them and maybe even put them, could be under the maple tree or along the fence, what we'll end up doing is we will dump some out and we'll actually mow over them and shred them a bit so they're much finer mulch, which breaks down and really feeds the soil well. And those would be a great addition. So once we put compost along the rows, only on the drip line, because there's no need to put compost in the middle of the rows. We don't want to encourage growth there. We want the compost distributed along the drip line, and then we can put leaves over the garden. And then in a perfect world, we would put a nice layer of wood chips right there along the center. And if we did that, come spring, when it's time to plant, all we would really have to do is just use a small tool to just sort of stir up the soil along here, and we'd be able to plant directly into the line and it would be ready to go. That's the perfect world, and it's certainly doable. So those are things that you can do. You could bring some compost along the drip line. If we don't have leaves, that's okay. We can still use some wood chips. We're going to mulch these fall crops, and in the spring we'll get a boost of early growth and be able to have a good harvest until they go to seed. And then areas that have been harvested can get, the debris can be removed, smoothed out, put that compost on the drip line, and it's good to go for the winter. We're going to just keep there's still squash growing and there's still beans growing, so we're just going to push it and see what happens. We'll probably only get one more crop of beans. The peppers, we'll leave them in until the last minute. These Roma tomatoes we left in so they can ripen on the vine. And we actually have cauliflower and things growing. I mean, it's probably not going to do anything, but it can stay there for now. We've got a really nice row of cilantro and really healthy kale coming up, so we're going to overwinter that. And then this whole area back here, this is where, these were where we had some broad beans and some bean plants. We're leaving the roots in the ground because we want them to decompose and leave their nitrogen fixed in the soil. But there are weeds and it can still be smoothed out and cleaned up. And we're gonna leave the stakes in to mark where they were so that people know next spring what we'll do is we'll plant nitrogen heavy feeding plants in those rows. But all of this area where the potatoes were, it's looking pretty good. We do have some garlic planted, so you'll notice that they have stakes. And you know, this squash area is gonna be the next big task. So, you know, I'm thinking in about 3 weeks, so the weekend after Thanksgiving, we could have our fall cleanup part 2. And at that point, most of these plants will be done. We will have gotten rid of it. We'll really be able to do a good smoothing, composting, chipping session. And we could really probably say, good night, garden. Enjoy your winter and see you in the spring. If you have any questions, you can email me. Email me at secretary@shuswapfood.ca. If you want to bring up a friend, this is a great place to come and meet and to spend some time in the beautiful outdoors. The sunflowers, you know, you can pick some sunflowers and take them home. There's lavender, there's herbs. So we really appreciate all the efforts put into this garden. We've produced hundreds of pounds of beautiful produce this season. And I can tell you the Second Harvest really appreciates it. The people really appreciate having this fresh, nutritious, farm-grown produce. It's a big difference for the taste, for just the quality, and it goes a long way in people being able to say, you know, I deserve really good food too, and it goes a long way for their mental health too. So thank you, and if you want to come up this weekend, we really encourage you to. Otherwise, you can always come by on Saturday down to the Lighthouse Ministries property anytime after 10 and come and see what's happening. So have a great week, everyone, and take care.